The rain hit my windshield like tiny bullets that night. I should have stayed home instead of driving back from my cousin's wedding 3 towns over. But Sarah had been texting me all evening, asking when I'd be back. She worried when I stayed out too late. The highway stretched ahead like a black snake. My headlights cut through the darkness, showing me nothing but wet pavement and the yellow lines that guided me home. I'd driven this route 100 times before. Tonight felt different somehow. That's when I saw her standing by the roadside, a girl with bright red hair that seemed to glow even in the rain. She wore a simple white dress that should have been soaked through, but it looked perfectly dry. Her skin was pale as milk in my headlights. I slowed down without thinking. Something about her made me stop completely. She didn't wave or try to flag me down. She just stood there looking right at me through my windshield. Her eyes were the darkest green I'd ever seen. I rolled down my passenger window. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" She walked over to my car with slow, careful steps. When she got close, I could see she was maybe 17 or 18 years old, pretty in a way that made you want to keep looking. Her red hair hung down past her shoulders in perfect waves. "I need a ride," she said. Her voice was soft and sweet like honey. My car broke down a few miles back. I glanced in my rearview mirror but didn't see any broken down car. The road behind me was empty. Maybe she'd walked farther than I thought. People did strange things when they were scared and alone. "Sure, get in," I told her. "Where do you need to go?" She climbed into my passenger seat and closed the door. Up close, she smelled like flowers after rain. Her dress really was completely dry, which seemed impossible given the storm outside. I turned up the heat in case she was cold. "Just drive," she said, settling back in her seat. "I'll tell you where to turn." I pulled back onto the road and picked up speed. The rain kept coming down hard, making it tough to see more than a few feet ahead. I kept my eyes on the road but could feel her watching me. Every time I glanced over, she was staring right at me with those dark, green eyes. "What's your name?" I asked, trying to make conversation. "Rose," she said. "What's yours?" "Jake." I smiled at her, but she didn't smile back. "So what happened to your car?" "It just stopped working." She turned to look out her window. "Cars do that sometimes." Something about her answer bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Maybe she was just shaken up from being stranded in the rain. I'd give her a ride wherever she needed to go, and that would be that. We drove in silence for the next 10 minutes. The radio played softly in the background, some late-night talk show I wasn't really listening to. Rose sat perfectly still beside me, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't fidget or move around like most people do in cars. "Turn left at the next road," she said suddenly. I looked ahead but didn't see any road coming up. "Which road? I don't see—" "There." She pointed to a gap in the trees I hadn't noticed before. It was barely wide enough for my car, more like a dirt path than an actual road. "Turn there." I slowed down and turned where she pointed. My car bumped and bounced over the rough ground. Tree branches scraped against my windows as we drove deeper into the woods. This couldn't be right. Nobody lived way out here. "Are you sure this is the way?" I asked. "Yes." Her voice was calm and sure. "Keep going straight." The path got narrower and rougher with each passing minute. I had to drive slowly to avoid getting stuck in the mud or hitting a tree. My headlights showed nothing but more trees and darkness ahead. Where was she taking me? After what felt like forever, the trees opened up into a small clearing. I expected to see a house or at least some sign of where she lived. Instead, there was nothing but empty grass and more trees on the other side. I stopped the car and looked around. "I don't see any house," I said, turning to Rose. She was gone. The passenger seat was empty, like she'd never been there at all. The door was still closed and locked. I checked the back seat, thinking maybe she'd somehow moved. Nothing. She had simply vanished. I got out of my car and called her name. "Rose. Rose, where are you?" My voice echoed through the trees, but nobody answered. The rain had stopped while we were driving, and now the woods were eerily quiet. Not even the sound of wind in the leaves. I walked around my car twice, looking for any sign of where she might have gone. The ground was soft from the rain, but I didn't see any footprints except my own. It was like she had never existed at all. This was getting too weird for me. I got back in my car and tried to turn around in the small clearing. It took several tries to get pointed back toward the path we'd come from. As I drove away, I kept checking my mirrors, expecting to see Rose running after me. The woods stayed empty and dark. The drive back to the main road took twice as long as getting there. Every shadow between the trees looked like it might be her, waiting for me to come back. But I never saw her again. When I finally reached the highway, I felt like I could breathe normally again. I drove straight home, my mind racing with questions. Who was Rose? Where had she come from? And how had she disappeared from a locked car without making a sound? None of it made any sense. Sarah was waiting up for me when I got home. She sat on our couch in her pajamas reading a magazine. Our small apartment felt warm and safe after that strange drive through the woods. I was glad to be back. "How was the wedding?" she asked, looking up from her magazine. "Fine," I said, deciding not to tell her about Rose just yet. Sarah was the practical type who didn't believe in anything she couldn't explain. She'd probably think I'd imagined the whole thing. "Sorry I'm so late. The rain made driving slow. I'm just glad you're home safe." She stood up and gave me a hug. I was starting to worry. We went to bed, and I tried to put the strange encounter out of my mind. People got confused in bad weather all the time. Maybe Rose had gotten out while I was looking around the clearing, and I just hadn't seen her. There had to be a logical explanation. But sleep didn't come easily that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rose's pale face and dark green eyes staring at me. I kept thinking about how dry her dress had been despite the pouring rain, and how she'd vanished from a locked car like she was made of smoke. The next morning, I decided to drive back to where I'd first seen her. In daylight, maybe I could figure out what had really happened. Sarah had already left for work, so I didn't have to explain where I was going. I found the spot on the highway easily enough. There was a small shoulder where someone could stand safely off the road. But looking around in the bright morning sun, I couldn't understand why anyone would be there. No houses were nearby. No gas stations or stores. Nothing but empty fields and woods. I also looked for the path Rose had directed me down. After driving back and forth along that stretch of highway 3 times, I couldn't find it. The trees grew thick and close to the road with no gaps wide enough for a car. Had I dreamed the whole thing? Confused and frustrated, I drove home. Sarah was making lunch in our kitchen when I walked in. She looked at me with concern. "You look tired," she said. "Are you feeling okay?" "Just didn't sleep well." I sat down at our small table and rubbed my eyes. Weird dreams. About what? I almost told her about Rose then. The words were right on the tip of my tongue. But something held me back. Call it embarrassment or confusion, or just plain stubbornness. I wanted to understand what had happened before I shared it with anyone else. "Nothing important," I said instead. That afternoon, I tried to focus on normal things. I cleaned our apartment and did some laundry. Sarah and I watched a movie together after dinner. For a few hours, I almost forgot about the mysterious girl on the road. But that night, she came back. I woke up around 2 in the morning and immediately knew someone else was in our apartment. The feeling was so strong it made me sit up in bed. Sarah was still asleep beside me, breathing softly. Our bedroom door was closed just like we'd left it. I listened carefully but didn't hear any sounds of movement. No footsteps or creaking floorboards, just the normal nighttime noises of our building. Still, the feeling wouldn't go away. Someone was definitely there. I got up quietly and crept to our bedroom door, opened it just a crack and peered out into our living room. Everything looked normal. Our couch, our coffee table, our small TV. Nothing out of place. Then I saw her. Rose sat in our armchair like she belonged there. She wore the same white dress from the night before, and her red hair caught the light from the street lamp outside our window. She was looking right at me. "Hello, Jake," she said in that sweet honey voice. I froze in the doorway, not sure if I was awake or dreaming. How had she gotten into our apartment? Our door was locked and we lived on the 3rd floor. There was no way she could have climbed in through a window. "How did you get in here?" I whispered, trying not to wake Sarah. "You invited me," Rose said simply, "when you gave me a ride last night." "I didn't invite you here. I don't even know where you live." She smiled for the first time since I'd met her. It should have been a pretty smile, but something about it made me uncomfortable. Her teeth were very white and very straight. "I live here now," she said, "with you." "No, you don't." I stepped fully into the living room and closed the bedroom door behind me. "You need to leave. My girlfriend is sleeping, and you're going to scare her." Rose tilted her head like she was thinking about something. "Sarah. Yes, I know about Sarah. She's very pretty, very kind. She loves you a lot." The way she said Sarah's name made my skin crawl. How did she even know who Sarah was? Had she been watching us somehow? "You need to go," I said more firmly. "Right now." "But I can't go," Rose said, still smiling that unsettling smile. "I belong here now. You brought me home." I moved toward the front door, planning to open it and show her out. But when I reached for the deadbolt, my hand passed right through it like it wasn't there. I tried again with the same result. The door and lock looked solid, but I couldn't touch them. Rose watched me struggle with the door for a few seconds. Then she laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, beautiful and creepy at the same time. "You can't make me leave, Jake," she said. "And you can't leave either. Not anymore." I spun around to face her. "What are you talking about?" "You picked me up on the road. You brought me into your car. That created a connection between us." She stood up from the chair and walked closer to me. "Now I'm part of your life, forever." "That's insane. I just gave you a ride. I was trying to help." "I know." Her green eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "That's what makes it so perfect. You're a good person, Jake. You help people who need it. That's why I chose you." The room suddenly felt much colder. I could see my breath when I spoke. "Chose me for what?" "To be my companion, to take care of me, to never leave me alone again." I backed away from her until I hit the wall. "You're crazy. I'm calling the police." I reached for my phone, but my hand passed right through it just like the door. Everything in our apartment looked normal, but I couldn't touch any of it. Only Rose seemed solid and real. "The police can't help you," she said, moving even closer. No one can help you now. We're connected, you and I. Where you go, I go. What you see, I see. What you feel, I feel. What are you? I whispered. Her smile grew wider, showing more of those perfect white teeth. I'm just a girl who needed a ride, and you were kind enough to give me one. I tried to run past her toward the bedroom, thinking I could wake Sarah and somehow get help. But Rose moved faster than anyone should be able to move. 1 second she was across the room, the next she was standing right in front of me. Sarah can't see me, she said. Only you can. She'll never know I'm here unless I want her to. Why are you doing this? Because I was alone for so long. For just a moment, her expression softened and she looked like a normal teenage girl, sad and lost and scared. I stood by that road for months, waiting for someone like you, someone who would stop to help instead of driving past. I'm not the first person you've tried this with. Her face went cold again. You're the first one who stopped, the first one who was kind to me. That makes you special, Jake. That makes you mine. I heard movement from the bedroom. Sarah was waking up. In a few seconds, she'd come looking for me. What would happen when she saw Rose sitting in our living room? Please, I said quietly. Don't hurt her. She didn't do anything wrong. I won't hurt Sarah, Rose said. As long as you do what I ask. Which is what? Take care of me, include me in your life. Never try to get rid of me. She moved closer until she was standing right in front of me. I've been alone for so long, Jake. I just want to belong somewhere. The bedroom door opened behind me. Sarah stepped out in her pajamas, yawning and rubbing her eyes. Jake, what are you doing out here? She looked around our living room, her gaze passing right over Rose like she wasn't there. Who are you talking to? I glanced at Rose, who put a finger to her lips in a shushing motion. She was telling me to keep quiet about her presence. What choice did I have? Nobody, I told Sarah. I couldn't sleep, so I came out here to think. Are you sure you're okay? You've been acting strange since you got home last night. I'm fine, just tired. Sarah walked over and hugged me. As her arms went around me, they passed right through Rose like she was made of air. But Rose didn't move or react. She just stood there, smiling that unsettling smile. Come back to bed, Sarah said. You need to get some sleep. I let her lead me back to the bedroom, stealing one last glance at Rose. She had settled back into our armchair and was watching us go. Just before Sarah closed the door, Rose waved at me with her pale fingers. I lay in bed next to Sarah, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out what to do. Rose was some kind of ghost or spirit, that much was clear. But she could affect the physical world when she wanted to. I'd seen her open my car door and sit in the seat. She'd somehow made it impossible for me to touch things in our own apartment. What did she really want from me? And what would happen if I didn't give it to her? I must have fallen asleep eventually because the next thing I knew, Sarah was shaking my shoulder. Sunlight streamed through our bedroom window. Morning had come whether I was ready for it or not. Jake, wake up. You're going to be late for work. I sat up groggily and checked the clock. I'd slept through my alarm and had less than an hour to get ready and drive across town to my job at the hardware store. Sarah was already dressed and ready to leave for her job at the bank. I'll grab breakfast on the way, I said, throwing off the covers. There's coffee in the kitchen, Sarah called as she headed for the front door. I'll see you tonight. Love you. Love you too. I heard the door close behind her and immediately felt the temperature in our apartment drop. Rose was awake and active again. I could sense her presence even though I couldn't see her yet. I got dressed quickly and headed for the kitchen. Rose sat at our small table, looking like she'd been there all night. In the morning light streaming through our window, she looked more solid and real than ever. "Good morning, Jake," she said cheerfully. "Did you sleep well?" "What do you want?" I asked, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "I want to come with you today. To your job. I want to see what you do." "Absolutely not. People will think I'm crazy if I start talking to someone they can't see." "Then don't talk to me in front of other people." She stood up and smoothed down her white dress. "I'll just watch and listen. I want to learn about your life." I tried to ignore her and finish getting ready for work. But everywhere I went in our small apartment, Rose followed. She stayed just close enough that I could always see her in my peripheral vision. Her presence was like a constant itch I couldn't scratch. When I left for work, she walked out the door right behind me. I couldn't stop her any more than I could stop the sun from rising. She climbed into my car's passenger seat, just like she had that first night on the road. "This is going to be fun," she said as I started the engine. The drive to work was torture. Rose asked questions about everything we passed. Who lived in that house? What did that store sell? Why were there so many cars on the road? Her curiosity seemed endless, but I couldn't answer without looking like I was talking to myself. At the hardware store, things got even worse. Rose followed me inside and wandered around like she was shopping. She picked up tools and examined them closely, then put them back in the wrong places. I had to constantly reorganize displays after she touched them. My boss, Mr. Peterson, noticed my distracted behavior right away. "You feeling all right today, Jake?" he asked during my lunch break. "You seem a little off." "Just tired," I said, watching Rose examine a display of paint cans. "Didn't sleep well last night." "Maybe you should head home early today. Take care of yourself." I almost said yes, but then I realized that would mean spending more time alone with Rose. At least at work, there were other people around, other distractions. At home, it would just be the two of us. "I'm fine," I said. "I'll finish my shift." The rest of the day crawled by. Rose grew bored with the hardware store and started focusing her attention on me instead. She stood behind the counter and watched every customer I helped. Sometimes she would whisper comments about them that made it hard for me to concentrate. "That man is lying about what he needs the rope for," she said during one transaction. "That woman is going to hurt someone with that hammer," she said during another. I had no idea if she was right about any of it, but her comments were disturbing. How could she possibly know things like that just by looking at people? When my shift finally ended, I hurried out to my car hoping Rose might stay behind. No such luck. She was already sitting in the passenger seat, waiting for me. "That was interesting," she said as I started the engine. "You're very good at helping people, very patient and kind." I didn't respond. I just wanted to get home and figure out how to get rid of her. There had to be some way to break whatever connection she thought existed between us. But as I drove, Rose started talking about Sarah. "She's going to make dinner tonight," Rose said casually. "Spaghetti with that sauce you like. She bought the ingredients yesterday while you were at your cousin's wedding." "How do you know that?" "I know lots of things about Sarah. I know she's worried about her sister who lives in California. I know she wants to get a dog but thinks your apartment is too small. I know she's been looking at engagement rings online." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Stay away from Sarah." "I can't stay away from her. She's part of your life, which makes her part of my life now." Rose turned to look at me with those dark green eyes. But I like Sarah. She makes you happy. I don't want to hurt her. Then leave us alone. I can't do that, Jake. We've been through this already. When we got home, Sarah was indeed making spaghetti, just like Rose had said. The smell of garlic and tomatoes filled our apartment. It should have been a comforting, normal scene. Instead, it felt like a trap. How was work? Sarah asked, stirring the sauce on our stove. Fine, I said, sitting down at the table. Rose sat in the chair across from me, watching us both with obvious fascination. Mr. Peterson called, Sarah continued. He wanted to make sure you were feeling okay. Said you seemed distracted today. I glanced at Rose, who smiled innocently. Just tired. I'll be fine tomorrow. We ate dinner together, Sarah chatting about her day at the bank while Rose sat silently watching us. Every so often, Rose would reach out like she was going to touch Sarah's hand or face. Her fingers would pass right through, but the gesture still made me nervous. After dinner, Sarah and I watched TV on our couch. Rose sat in the armchair, her attention split between the show and us. When Sarah leaned against me during a commercial, Rose tilted her head and studied us like we were fascinating creatures in a zoo. I love you, Sarah whispered, kissing my cheek. I love you too, I whispered back, acutely aware of Rose watching our every move. That night, I lay awake long after Sarah fell asleep. I could feel Rose's presence in our apartment, even though I couldn't see her. She was always there now, like a shadow I couldn't shake. How long could I keep this up? How long before the strain of pretending everything was normal drove me crazy? I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, Sarah was shaking me awake again. But this time something was wrong. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. Jake, there's someone in our apartment, she whispered urgently. I sat up immediately, suddenly wide awake. What do you mean? I got up to get some water and saw a girl sitting in our living room. Red hair, white dress. She was just sitting there staring at our bedroom door. My stomach dropped. Rose had made herself visible to Sarah. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. Are you sure? I asked, trying to buy time to think. Of course I'm sure. She's still out there. I think she might be hurt or in shock or something. She didn't respond when I tried to talk to her. Sarah started to get out of bed, probably planning to check on Rose again. I grabbed her arm gently. Wait, let me handle this. Jake, we need to call the police. How did she even get in here? Just give me a minute, okay? Let me see what's going on first. I got up and crept to our bedroom door. Through the crack, I could see Rose sitting in our armchair exactly like Sarah had described. She looked solid and real, no longer invisible to my girlfriend. I opened the door and stepped into the living room. Rose turned to look at me with that familiar smile. Hello, Jake, she said in her sweet voice. Behind me, I heard Sarah gasp. She could hear Rose now, too. Who are you? Sarah asked, coming to stand beside me. How did you get in here? Rose's smile grew wider. I'm Rose. Jake gave me a ride the other night. He was so kind to me. I could feel Sarah looking at me, waiting for an explanation. What could I possibly say that would make sense? I found her on the highway during the storm, I said carefully. She needed help. But how is she here now? In our apartment? Rose answered before I could. Jake invited me to stay. He said I could live here with both of you. I never said that, I protested, but Rose just kept smiling. Sarah looked confused and upset. Jake, what's going on? You never mentioned picking up anyone. And why would you invite a stranger to live with us without asking me? He didn't want to upset you, Rose said helpfully. He knew you might not understand at first, but once you get to know me, you'll like me. I'm very easy to live with. This is insane, Sarah said, backing toward our bedroom. I'm calling the police. She reached for her phone, but just like what had happened to me, her hand passed right through it. She tried again with the same result, her face growing pale with fear and confusion. What's wrong with my phone? She whispered. Rose stood up from the chair and walked closer to us. There's no need to call anyone, Sarah. We can work this out ourselves. We're all adults here. Stay away from her, I said, stepping between Rose and Sarah. I'm not going to hurt her, Jake. I told you that already. Rose looked past me to where Sarah was standing. I just want us all to get along, to be a family. We're not a family, Sarah said, her voice shaking. You're a stranger who broke into our home. I didn't break in. Jake brought me here. He created the connection between us when he picked me up on that rainy night. Rose's expression grew sad. I was so alone, Sarah. Standing by that road for months, waiting for someone to care enough to stop. Jake was the first person to show me kindness. That doesn't give you the right to invade our lives, I said. But it does. Rose's sadness vanished, replaced by something harder and more determined. Kindness has consequences, Jake. Good deeds create bonds. You can't just help someone and then walk away like it never happened. Sarah grabbed my arm. Jake, I'm scared. What is she? I wished I had a good answer. I don't know. Rose heard our whispered conversation and laughed that wind chime laugh. I'm just a girl who needed help. And now I'm a girl who has a home with people who care about her. We don't care about you, Sarah said angrily. We don't even know you. But you will, Rose replied. We have all the time in the world to get acquainted. The next few hours were a nightmare. Rose made herself comfortable in our apartment while Sarah and I huddled together on our couch, trying to figure out what to do. We couldn't leave because Rose had somehow made it impossible for us to touch the door. We couldn't call for help because our phones might as well have been holograms. Rose seemed to enjoy our distress. She hummed softly to herself as she explored our home, looking through our things like she was taking inventory. She opened our refrigerator and cabinets, examined our photos, even went through our closets. You have such a nice life here, she said, emerging from our bedroom with one of Sarah's sweaters. So cozy and warm. I can see why you're happy together. Give me back my sweater, Sarah demanded. I was just looking at it. The color is so pretty. Rose held the sweater up to herself in front of our mirror. Do you think it would look good on me? Don't touch our things, I said. But these things belong to all of us now, Rose replied. We're roommates, aren't we? Roommates share. By morning, Sarah was exhausted from fear and stress. She sat curled up against me on the couch, jumping at every sound Rose made. Neither of us had slept. This can't be real, Sarah whispered. People don't just become trapped in their own homes by strange girls who can walk through walls. But it was real, no matter how impossible it seemed. Rose had somehow made us prisoners in our own apartment, and she showed no signs of leaving. Around noon, Rose announced she was hungry and wanted us to make her lunch. I don't know how to cook, she said. I never learned. You'll have to teach me. Make your own lunch, Sarah said defiantly. Rose's expression grew cold. That wasn't a request, Sarah. I'm asking nicely, but I don't have to keep asking nicely. To prove her point, Rose walked over to our coffee table and picked up Sarah's favorite mug, the one her grandmother had given her years ago. Rose held it high above her head, smiling that disturbing smile. "Please don't," Sarah said quickly. "I'll make you lunch." I knew you'd understand. Rose carefully set the mug back down. "See how easy it is when we all cooperate?" Sarah made sandwiches for all three of us, her hands shaking as she worked. Rose watched every move, offering suggestions and compliments like this was a normal cooking lesson between friends. "You're very good at this," Rose said as Sarah cut the sandwiches. "Jake is lucky to have someone who takes such good care of him." "He takes care of me too," Sarah replied quietly. "Of course he does. That's what people do when they love each other." Rose smiled that unsettling smile. "And now he'll take care of me too. Won't you, Jake?" I didn't answer. I was still trying to figure out how to get rid of her. There had to be some weakness, some way to break whatever hold she had over us. But every idea I came up with seemed hopeless. That afternoon, Rose decided she wanted to rearrange our furniture. She moved our chairs and tables around like they weighed nothing, creating a new layout that pleased her. When Sarah protested, Rose simply ignored her. "I think the couch looks better over here," Rose said, shoving our heavy sofa across the room with one hand. "It gives the room better flow." "Change it back," Sarah demanded. "I like it this way. And since I live here now, I should have a say in how things are arranged." Rose looked around our transformed living room with satisfaction. "Much better." As the day wore on, Rose became more demanding. She wanted Sarah to show her how to use our television. She wanted me to explain how our shower worked. She treated our apartment like her personal playground and us like her servants. But the worst part was how she watched us. Every conversation, every touch, every private moment between Sarah and me became a performance for Rose's entertainment. She studied us the way a scientist might study lab rats. "You two are so sweet together," she said while Sarah and I tried to eat dinner. "How long have you been in love?" 3 years, Sarah answered reluctantly. "That's wonderful. I've never been in love. I've never had anyone care about me at all." Rose's expression grew wistful. "What does it feel like?" Sarah and I exchanged glances. For a moment, Rose sounded genuinely sad and lonely, almost human. "It feels like being safe," Sarah said softly. "Like having someone who will always be there for you." "Always." Rose perked up with interest. "Even when things get difficult?" "Even then." "And you, Jake, what does love feel like to you?" I hesitated, not wanting to give Rose any more ammunition to use against us. But something in her expression made me answer honestly. "It feels like coming home," I said. "Like finding the person you want to spend your life with." Rose nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand now. That's why you stopped to help me that night. Because love has made you kind. Because caring for Sarah has taught you to care for others." "I guess so." "And now you can care for me too." Rose's smile returned bright and predatory. "Now you can teach me what love feels like." That night, Rose insisted on sleeping in our living room. She curled up on our couch like a cat, looking smaller and more vulnerable in the darkness. For a few minutes, I almost felt sorry for her. "She's not human," Sarah whispered to me once we were alone in our bedroom. "Whatever she is She's not a normal person. I know. We have to find a way out of this, Jake. I can't live like this. Having her watch our every move, control our every action. I'm working on it. But I wasn't really. I had no idea how to fight something like Rose. She could become solid when she wanted to interact with the physical world, but she could also become intangible when it suited her purposes. She seemed to know things she shouldn't know and could do things that were impossible. Around midnight, I heard Rose crying. Soft, heartbroken sobs that drifted through our closed bedroom door. Despite everything she'd put us through, the sound made me want to comfort her. She really did sound like a lost, lonely girl. I got up and crept to our door, opening it just enough to peek out. Rose sat on our couch with her knees drawn up to her chest, crying into her hands. Her red hair fell around her face like a curtain. "Rose?" I whispered. "Are you okay?" She looked up at me with tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "I'm sorry, Jake. I didn't mean to wake you." I stepped into the living room and sat down in the chair across from her. "What's wrong?" I was thinking about how long I was alone, standing by that road, watching car after car drive past. Hundreds of people who could have helped me, but none of them cared enough to stop. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You were the first person to show me kindness in so long. But you can't force people to care about you," I said gently. "That's not how it works. I know that, but I'm so scared of being alone again." Rose's voice broke. "What if you decide you don't want me here? What if you find a way to make me leave?" "Rose, I'll do anything to stay, Jake. Anything at all. This is the first time I've felt like I belong somewhere." Looking at her in that moment, crying and vulnerable, I understood something important. Rose wasn't evil or malicious. She was desperate. Desperate enough to trap us in our own home rather than risk being abandoned again. "You can't keep us prisoner," I said. "That's not friendship. That's not love. But if I let you go, you'll leave me. Everyone always leaves me. Maybe because you don't give them a choice. Maybe if you tried trusting people instead of controlling them, they'd want to stay." Rose considered this for a long moment. "Do you really think so?" "I think it's worth trying." She nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try, Jake. For you, I'll try." The next morning, I woke up to find that Rose had restored our apartment to its original state. The furniture was back where it belonged, and I could touch things normally again. When I tried the front door, it opened without any problem. Sarah was amazed and relieved. "Does this mean she's gone?" "I don't think so," I said. "But I think she's trying to change." I was right. Rose was still there, but she was different. She asked permission before touching our things. She gave us space when we needed it. She even made herself invisible when Sarah and I wanted private time together. It wasn't perfect. Rose still watched us constantly, still asked endless questions about our lives and relationship, but she was genuinely trying to be less controlling, less demanding. "I'm learning," she told me one evening while Sarah was taking a shower. "Learning how to be around people without scaring them away." "It takes time," I said. "Relationships are complicated." "Will you teach me? Will you help me figure out how to connect with people the right way?" I looked at this strange, lonely girl who had turned our lives upside down. She was trying so hard to change, to become someone worth caring about. How could I say no? "I'll try," I promised. And so began the strangest chapter of my life. living with Rose, teaching her about human connection while she slowly learned to trust that we wouldn't abandon her. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and arguments and days when I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But gradually, Rose became less of a captor and more of a, well, not exactly a friend, but not an enemy either. She helped with household chores even though she didn't need to eat or sleep. She learned to give Sarah and me space for our relationship. She even started becoming visible to other people occasionally, though she was always nervous about it. "What if they don't like me?" she would ask before we went anywhere together. "Then we'll deal with it," I would tell her, "but you won't know until you try." Sarah took longer to warm up to Rose, which was understandable given how their relationship had started. But eventually, even she began to see the lonely, frightened girl beneath Rose's supernatural abilities. "She's like a child who never learned how to make friends," Sarah told me one night. "It's sad, really." "Do you think we're doing the right thing, helping her?" "I think we're doing the only thing we can do. She's not going anywhere, Jake. She's part of our lives now, whether we like it or not. We might as well try to make the best of it." Months passed. Rose continued to grow and change, becoming more confident in social situations and less dependent on our constant attention. She even got a part-time job at a local flower shop, though she had to be careful not to let her supernatural nature show. "The flowers seem to grow better when I'm around," she told us proudly after her first week. "Mrs. Patterson says I have a natural gift." She was right. Plants and flowers flourished in Rose's presence. It was one of the more positive aspects of whatever she was. One evening, almost a year after I had first picked her up on that rainy road, Rose made an announcement that surprised us both. "I think I'm ready to live on my own," she said during dinner. Sarah and I exchanged glances. We'd grown used to having Rose around, strange as that seemed. She'd become part of our daily routine. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I think so. I've learned so much from watching you two, about kindness and patience, and what it means to care for someone. I want to try using those lessons with other people." "Where will you go?" "There's a small apartment above the flower shop. Mrs. Patterson said I could rent it if I want." Rose smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it looked completely natural and unforced. "I think I'd like to try living like a normal person, having my own space, making my own friends." "But you'll still visit?" Sarah asked, and I was surprised to hear genuine concern in her voice. "Of course. You two are my family now, the first people who ever cared about me." Rose reached across the table and squeezed both our hands. Her touch was warm and solid and completely human. "I'll never forget what you've done for me." A week later, we helped Rose move her few belongings to her new apartment. It was strange walking through our home without sensing her presence everywhere. Stranger still to realize that I actually missed her. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Sarah asked as we watched Rose arrange flowers in her new living room. "I think she'll be fine," I said. "She's learned to trust people. That's the hardest part." Rose did visit regularly, usually on weekends. She would tell us about her job, her new friends, the small joys and challenges of independent life. She was becoming more human with each passing day, though she never lost the otherworldly quality that made her unique. "I met someone," she told us one Saturday afternoon, blushing slightly. "Someone special?" Sarah asked with a knowing smile. "Maybe. He comes to the flower shop every week to buy roses for his mother. His name is David, and he has the kindest eyes." Rose's face lit up with happiness. He asked me to have coffee with him next week. That's wonderful, I said, meaning it. I'm nervous, though. What if he finds out what I really am? What if he runs away like everyone else always has? Then he's not the right person for you, Sarah said firmly. The right person will accept you exactly as you are. Rose nodded thoughtfully, like you two did. We didn't have much choice at first, I pointed out. No, but you chose to help me become better. You chose to see the person I could be instead of just the person I was. Rose's eyes glistened with unshed tears. That made all the difference. 6 months later, Rose invited us to her wedding. She and David had fallen deeply in love, and he'd accepted her unusual nature with remarkable grace. The ceremony was small and simple, held in the flower shop surrounded by the blooms that thrived in Rose's presence. I never thought I'd see her this happy, Sarah whispered, as we watched Rose exchange vows with her new husband. She deserves it, I said. Everyone deserves to find their person. After the ceremony, Rose pulled us aside for a private moment. I wanted to thank you, she said, tears of joy streaming down her face. For everything. For stopping on that rainy night. For not giving up on me when I was at my worst. For teaching me how to love and be loved. We're proud of you, Sarah said, hugging her tightly. You taught us a few things too, I added, about patience and second chances and the power of kindness. Rose smiled that radiant smile that had replaced her old predatory grin. I guess we all learned from each other. As we drove home from the wedding, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us to this point. What had started as a simple act of kindness on a stormy night had transformed all our lives in ways I never could have imagined. Do you ever regret stopping to help her that night? Sarah asked, as if reading my thoughts. I considered the question seriously. Rose had disrupted our lives, frightened us, and forced us into a situation we never asked for. But she'd also taught us about compassion and the importance of not giving up on people even when they seemed beyond help. No, I said finally. I don't regret it. She needed help and we were able to give it to her. That's what matters. Even though it changed everything, especially because it changed everything. We drove the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, both of us thinking about Rose and her remarkable transformation from a desperate, lonely spirit into a young woman capable of love and happiness. That night, as Sarah and I settled into bed, I felt grateful for the strange twist of fate that had brought Rose into our lives. Yes, she'd been frightening and demanding at first, but underneath all that supernatural power and desperate neediness had been a soul crying out for connection. Sometimes the people who need help the most are the hardest to help. Sometimes kindness means seeing past the surface to the person someone could become. And sometimes, just sometimes, taking a chance on someone who seems lost can lead to something beautiful. I never saw Rose standing by the side of the road again. She'd found her home, her family, her place in the world. But I often think about that rainy night when I chose to stop instead of driving past. It was the best decision I ever made.